Hello, you're listening to the greatest video game podcast in the tri-state area. This is the Saluki Gamescast. This is episode 26 for October 21st, 2022. My name is Justin Young. Joining me as always are OJ Duncan, Ryan Freels, and filling in for Alicia, who, let us note, this is the second week in a row Alicia has been absent. So, this is going on her permanent record.
A lot of controllers needed updated.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a few months. She has to get back out on the road and update all those controllers for everyone. But we are very excited to have Mario Sanders filling in for her. Mario, can you introduce yourself to the podcast?
Yeah, hello. My name is Mario. I am a first-year PhD student here at SIU, and my main interests are within games and games communities, and so I'm excited to be on the podcast today.
All right, and we are excited to have you, Mario. We've obviously been talking to you for a little while about having you on sometime, and it just worked out scheduling-wise this week. We could get you on here and everything, and so we'll give Alicia some credit. She opened up a seat so that we could get some more people in and everything, in addition to getting all those controllers updated for us.
That said, that didn't stop Justin. He keeps smiley faces for all our appearances by our names on a board here. He was scraping off a bunch of hers earlier, so just so you know.
Well, hers is like the Watchmen smiley face, bleeding eyes and everything. But yeah, so how's your week been? Don't all rush. It's been that rough, huh?
It's been a week.
Yeah, I've had a pretty rough week too. I'm doing prelims and I had some other stuff happen, but I'm here now.
Oh, I guess I should have rushed. I'm having a really good week, so it's been pretty good.
Oh, well,
Good
nice
to
to
end
rub
on
it in.
New guy rubbing it in already.
It's not really been that bad for me necessarily. It's just been busy. I did see the beginning of the end of Owl House. The first episode of the third season has been released, and they're 44-minute episodes, and the next two will not be released until after 2023 has begun. So
they are releasing them almost like movies, individually, the episodes?
They're short, they're longer than a regular episode. Usually they're 21, 22-minute episodes,
right.
And these are 44 minutes, so they're double the length. So it's almost so in a way, it's almost more like having 6 final episodes, but it still stings. They are wrapping it up beautifully. They are doing a really good job of not making it feel rushed. I've heard folks say that they feel like it's rushed. I actually think they're doing a really damn good job of keeping it well paced. They have done even more to embrace the queerness of the show. I think I saw somebody post somewhere, what's Disney going to do? Cancel them again? So, it literally, one of the main things that happens, in the opening, first few minutes is just, one of the main characters creates a PowerPoint presentation for her mom, or a short, more like a photo album-like video thing, and it starts with, Lumity Productions, which the couple's name for Luz and Amity is Lumity, and then it has a bunch of cute pictures of them together, loving each other's company, obviously very in love, and then it has a picture of them holding hands, and then with her holding a bi pride flag that says, "Hi, I'm bi," and the mom embraces her in a very loving hug, just happy she found someone, and then one of her friends is running around with bi flags, in case any of you want to question this, no, this is bi as hell, and I am proud of this. And aside from that, you see that they have a photo album with pictures of her and her girlfriend, and one has a bi heart and a lesbian pride heart by it, to point being her girlfriend is lesbian. And then there's another character that they just introduce in this, and so that you don't question it, they do have a tag that says they them pronouns on it, and they do have non-binary flag patterns for fingernail polish. So
they're really layering it on thick. They want to make sure it's very clear.
And I'm happy about this. And aside from that, it's just a really damn good episode. The way it deals with the ramifications and the trauma of what happened in the previous episode, and the way it starts to tie in, makes you think more about the trauma that the main characters experienced before this episode, before you were even in the series, to kind of further complicate her character's story. And it also further explains why her mom was so complicit with, like, putting her in a camp for normalization. Because the show begins with she is going to be going to a camp that's called Think Inside the Box. Or, like, it's like a reality check camp, I think is what it's called. And its slogan is Think Inside the Box, and it has somebody in a box with their thumbs up. And if you are, like, given that this is going to be such a queer as hell show, if you're from, it's not that heavily availed, like, an, analogy or allegory for being sent to straight camps. And it kind of contextualizes why her mom was complicit in that, and kind of how her mom's history of being bullied and how her mom was being pathologized by people and experienced her daughter for being pathologized and was kind of made to be scared for her daughter. Not, necessarily validating saying what her mom did was okay by trying to make her more normal, but it kind of gave more context behind that. And you see that now her mom is seeing her daughter more fully develop on her own and has a community of friends and is now very much behind and supportive of her daughter. And it's beautiful. So.
Yeah, that's great. It kind of reminds me of Buffy the Vampire Slayer when they had Willow come out as a lesbian, and there was this sort of, at the time when it was originally airing, there was a lot of chatter that, oh, well, this is just a plot line. This is a story arc, and they're going to go through this, and then Oz is going to come back, and she's going to get back to Oz, and this is going to be her experimental college phase and everything. Then Tara got killed, and this is spoilers, but spoilers for a 20-year-old show, so sorry for anyone who hasn't seen it. Again, that kind of crept up, and people were like, oh, well, they'll have her date a guy now, because the point really is that she's bi, or that she is just going through a phase in life. And then they doubled down on it, and they were like, no, we are making the point this character is a lesbian. Like, the other part, dating Oz was the phase in her life and everything. Like, this is who this character really is. So that's nice when a show does that. I feel like for traditionally underrepresented groups, that they are like, we're not going to be subtle about this. We're going to be very upfront and make a point. This is who this character is. So there can be no debate, no question anymore among fans.
Dorothy can leave Oz, and Willow can too.
Yeah, and when Willow was the first plot line in any television show where someone slowly developed towards being an LGBTQ character, rather than just oh, I'm gay. When Ellen came out, it was oh, I'm announcing it to this airport. I'm gay, right? And Willow was the first person to just develop and actually show that process of realizing that you're gay and coming out. Yeah.
It's a very good show. Yeah. Unfortunately, one very bad person involved with it, but that you shouldn't let that dissuade you from all the good people who are working on it and producing a very good show. So, all right, well, let's talk about the games and what we've been playing. And Ryan, why don't we start with you? What have you been playing this last week?
So, because it's a busy week, I haven't played much. A little bit of Tetris. I went back to one I've talked about before called Onirim, just because it's been kind of a week where it's I just need a chill little thing to mess with. And just for a reintroduction, Onirim is it was originally a card game, and this is the app-based version of it, where you're getting a deck of cards, and you're trying to chain, and it's a solitaire type card game, and you're trying to chain certain cards together. And the theme of the game, and I think it actually does the theme pretty well, is you're in a nightmare and you're trying to get out. And so you're trying to get certain sets of 3 of a particular color in a row, so 3 blue, 3 red, 3 tan, and that way, and then you unlock 2 keys for each color, and then you need 2 keys for all the colors in order to get out of the dream. And aside from the you need 3 of a particular color in a row, you also need the thing complicating it further is you have to have symbols next to each other that don't match each other. So you have to have 3 of a matching color, but 3 symbols that don't match. And there's moon, key, and sun symbols. And the key symbols, though, you can also use those to, you can either try to hold on to those and wait and see if a door card comes up, because those will just immediately unlock the door without needing the other colors with it. Or you can even use it to look at future cards to see what's coming up and to maybe like get away from the nightmare cards before the nightmare cards pop up. And what I like about this is, you know how sometimes in a horror movie you see like scary kids drawings or stuff, like kids are drawing like scary ghost people they've seen. The ways the dreams are drawn kind of makes me think of a combination of that and a combination of like, I mean, they're very colorful, but they also kind of make me think of like German expressionism, like you'd see in like a movie like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which for people that aren't familiar with that is, if you've seen something like a Tim Burton film like Edward Scissorhands, they take a lot of influence from that, where there's just like a lot of dark and light contrast, and there's like a lot of like, it's like everything's very kind of strangely shapen and it looks very jagged often.
I do appreciate that you just buried a reference within a reference.
Right.
Like it was a very much Inception moment right there.
I was thinking about that as I was doing it. But the point is, it's not like very realistic. It's very seems abstract and broken down, and it's very expressive, thus be called German expressionism. And there's like a lot of dark and light contrast, and it feels kind of haunting and nightmarish often. And that's the feel, and I love German expressionism, and I like kind of those strange art styles, so I like that when I look in the art of the cards. So I guess what I want to say a little differently is I think I talked more about the mechanisms the last time I talked about it. I wanted to focus more on, I think I did talk about the art, but I wanted to focus more on this, and I think this otherwise is an example of mechanics that wouldn't have like made me think anything about a dream or anything, but because the artwork does so much to give that feeling of being in a haunted, demented dream, the artwork sells the theme in a way that otherwise the mechanics just wouldn't by themselves do. I think that's something you see a lot of in board games and card games, and furthermore the apps based on them, is that a lot of times some games are really good at getting in that theme, but some are just very much the mechanics with a theme dropped on top of it.
Right.
And this otherwise would have been that example, but the art does such a good job of making you fall into that theme that I do feel like as I'm going through the cards, I'm kind of walking through this strange dream world, and then trying to come out of it. And again, the way this is tied to video games is this is the app version. And something that I like about the app version is that a lot of people that are like cards, like the tactile part of it, and I do too, but I am terrible at shuffling. And you have to and anytime you like get a key, you have to then reshuffle the cards and stuff, and that's not something my hands are good for. So this is an app that makes this game otherwise accessible to me when it otherwise would not be.
You need one of those little card shufflers that does it automatically for you.
Yeah, I just would need to make sure to get a good quality one, because sometimes those can, depending on the cards, those might mess them up a little bit, I've heard.
That's
and
true.
this is and I love the art of this game, so I would want to make sure it's something that would keep that safe. That is something to look into in the future, but that said, I like how quick and accessible this makes it. I think, well, it's a card-based game. I think I like the accessibility of the video game, and also it was a free app. It's a free-to-get game. I think you might be able to pay for, like, I can't remember if you can pay for the expansions or not.
And this is Onirum.
Onirum, yeah.
Okay, and this is available on the
Apple App Store.
Do we know if it's on Google as well?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, cool. Onirum, that sounds interesting. I have trouble a lot of times getting into card games, but like once you get into a good one, it's the sort of thing you can play for a really long time, and so I still do try some here and there.
I think this occupies a similar space for me as Tetris. I might still put Tetris a leg up over it as far as that abstract basic few rules that I can keep going back to, because it's kind of, as haunting as it looks in ways, it's also beautiful, and it's actually calming experience for me going through the cards. And I would put it in that same category of, like, these I think are the best two games I've played for just kind of letting the rest of the world fall away and just focusing on this simple task. Letting it become more complicated and become more challenging, and then just starting over again and not feeling like mad or frustrated about it, just being like, okay, this worked out pretty well, this didn't work out so well, let me just try it again.
Sure, yeah. Anything else?
Just a little bit of Tetris. I got some high points, I got some low points, nothing as high as the last time I talked about, though. So,
You know, the Tetris World Championships were, I think it was last weekend. It was at the Portland Retro Game Expo. Apparently, that's where they also hold the Tetris World Championships.
oh, wow.
They like streamed some of it, so you can probably find it on Twitch, or there might be an archive up on YouTube of it and everything. But like, those people are crazy good at Tetris. Those people are like, it's interesting to watch those people play that game, because you sit there and you watch them and you go, I've been playing this game wrong my entire life.
See,
like, I have no idea how to play this game.
I can't get past 120,000 points usually.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I might look at that and then feel bad. We'll see. But
Well, I mean, I do that with a lot of games. Any sort of like competitive game I watch, you know, like I'll play Halo with friends and be like, this is fun. And then I watch people who play that game professionally, you know, competitively. And I just think, like, what are they doing? Like, I didn't even know you could do these maneuvers on here. And I feel like I'm just missing so much from games when I watch people like that. I'm very impressed, but like, you just kind of feel like you're missing out on something in the process. All right, cool. So Anarum is the big one for Ryan this week. Check that out on mobile platforms. OJ, what have you been up to this week?
So mostly I've just been playing Pokemon Go still, and the Halloween event started. So there's like research quests in Pokemon Go that you can do, and you have to like catch a certain amount of Pokemon or catch a certain amount of ghost Pokemon, which is what the Halloween event has been doing a lot of, or use a certain amount of berries. And so the research this year is about Yamask, and I forget just how dark some Pokemon origin stories are. So Yamask, and they go through this as you're doing this quest, is it's just hanging there and it's holding a mask, right? Well, you find out that the mask is actually their face from when they were a human, and they cut it off.
oh, right.
And so they're just hanging around, flying around with their human face from when they were a human, and now they're a ghost. And if you happen to grab their human face and put it on, they can control you. So I was looking up a few of the other really dark ones, because I haven't really played a whole lot of the
Pokemon
mainline
got
games.
weird.
It's always been weird. So some of the first ones like that, so like Ghastly and Haunter from the first one,
Right.
apparently if they lick you, you will like shiver to death. And it's in the information there.
And Drowsy and Hypno.
Yeah. Cubone, like it can't move on unless it has sorrow. So its mother essentially kills itself, and it wears its mother's mask, or like skull. And then when it evolves into Marowak, it can't take it off because their mother's skull is fused to their head. That's from the first game. There's
Is that the little like dinosaur with the
he's
skull
holding
on
a
his
bone.
head?
He's holding his mother's femur and wearing his mother's skull.
It may be a ground type, but it is the most metal Pokemon of all.
Yeah, we have, let's see, some of the other ones. There's Lampent and Chandelure, who burn the souls of their victims completely up. That's the fuel that they use. So it's a little lamp and then a chandelier, and they burn their victims' souls, and that's how they create a blue flame.
Yeah, I know the one that always sticks out is Drifblim, I
Yes.
think, or Drifloon.
Yeah.
Is, you know, this balloon that,
Yeah.
I don't know, not encourages, but like tempts children to like grab it, and then they fly off away with these kids.
Yeah, and there was one of the little
So it's Pennywise the Pokemon.
essentially, yes. One of the little like loading screens that they had it was a cart with balloons, and then you see a Drifbloom there, and you see a bunch of kids walking around. And so when a kid grabs a Drifbloom, as long as the kid isn't too heavy, it like flies away and kidnaps a child and kills them. And then that's how it evolves to become this bigger one, is that it just sucks all of the souls of children up and becomes really, really big.
A lot of parents got mad when you had to like do like a little side quest where you killed a child in order to evolve your Pokemon. That caused a lot of controversy.
Yeah, there was a whole Fox News segment on that.
But I just want to say, best rival battle ever.
Essentially, yeah.
Didn't see Charizard's fire coming.
And so it's just like watching all of them. Like Bayonetta is a doll, and it became a Pokemon from a doll because a kid threw it away and it got so angry, and it was so had so much hatred in it that it comes to life, and then it hunts down the child to kill it.
That's just Chucky.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where they're getting a lot of these, but it's just so...
So are they spotlighting these on Pokemon Go as part of Halloween season? Or you
so Yamask is the one that spotlighted this this Halloween. And last year it was Pumpkaboo, who Pumpkaboo's evolved form has wispy tendrils that it grabs and tortures people with until they die. And it's a pumpkin with it looks like a little cat on top of it, kind of.
And it looks so cute, too.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, like, when I brought up Hypno, like, going back to the Pennywise, like, stuff, like, they, like, eat, like, Drowsy eats your dreams, and I think Hypno does, too, but, like, Hypno will also, like, hypnotize children and, like, lure them away and, like, eat their dreams, I guess, but it's just even creepier because Hypno's just creepier, and there's even, like, a creepypasta about him called Hypno's Lullaby.
Right.
Oh, it's just Freddy Krueger Pokemon.
Oh, okay, yeah, more Freddy Krueger than Pennywise, probably, but...
There's a Pokemon called Cacturn who essentially, when people get lost in the desert, the cactuses follow them around until they're too tired to move, and then they eat people. And there's Houndoom, who... Houndoom just looks evil. I love Houndoom, but Houndoom just looks evil. It looks like a goat Doberman, essentially.
Doberman.
He's actually super friendly. He like runs a hospice. He's a great Pokemon, but he just looks evil.
He did regret, though, hiring Hypno at that hospice.
But yeah, so if you get burned by him, you suffer forever. Like, you cannot cure the burn from Houndoom. You just suffer forever. And then there's Beware.
Is there like paper cuttis now? Like, who's just like giving you paper cuts that never heal?
I'm sure there. Well, that's the next one, right?
Yeah, there's that, like, one paper crane
Yes.
Ultra Beast or something like that. So, yeah, probably.
Absolutely. There's so Stuffle is a tiny little pink and white bear, like a teddy bear kind of, right? He's really cute. And then you need a lot of candy to evolve him. So he has to be your friend for a long time, right? So because you're walking and he finds candy and gives it to you. And then so when you make him, when you evolve him, he becomes Beware, which is a giant bear that's standing on its like two front legs. But apparently, like, thousands of people every year die because Beware runs up and like hugs them, trying to be friendly, but crushes their spine and kills them. There's a lot of really dark Pokemon. So happy October, everybody.
So he's just that Pokemon, or he's just that bear from Toy Story 3.
Yes.
What was that bear's name?
Lotso.
Lotso, yes. Thank you.
And so, like, Parasect, because I'm just looking up an article with some of these. Parasect is a crab who was taken over by a fungus that is mind controlling it, which I didn't know at first. So it's essentially The Last of Us happening in the Pokemon world.
Well, that's like a real...
Yeah, that's a real thing, right? Like, it happens with, like, spiders and stuff, doesn't it? Like, spiders get, like, this fungus, and it gets in their brain and takes over them.
Yeah.
Which, what is scarier than a zombie spider?
Exactly. Okay, so Mimikyu, I know a lot of people know Mimikyu is wearing a Pokemon or a Pikachu costume, but the reason that it's wearing the costume is that if people see it, they just get sick and die. So if they see it without it, and the saddest of all of these is
This just feels like they're like making fun of people, and they're like, hey, Billy over there, Billy's so ugly. Like, I just feel like I'm gonna get sick and die every time I look at him. And then somebody's like, that could be a Pokemon, and we're like, we can't make Billy a Pokemon, and they're like, well, do it with Pikachu. Sorry, what was your last one?
Okay, so Absol is tragic because Absol is this very beautiful, beautiful Pokemon, right? But Absol can sense when a disaster is going to happen. So Absol will always run to humans and be like, oh no, a disaster is going to happen. You should like prepare and get ready, right? But humans associate that with Absol causing all the disasters because they're coming to warn people. So they started just killing every Absol that they seen when they come up, trying to warn them. Because they thought they were causing all the disasters.
There could be so many horror movies set in the Pokemon universe, and they have wasted this opportunity.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was so edgy.
Well, I know that's been like thrown around as, you know, like a survival horror type of Pokemon game, or what is the Arceus, including like more of the horror sort of elements of that within a Pokemon game.
And you just know Mr. Mime is doing some like scary stuff.
I mean, Mr. Mime he just looks evil.
Jigsaw of the Pokemon world.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, like a lot of this kind of backstory is coming from the card game originally.
No, from the actual like regular like mainline games in the Pokedex.
Yeah, they're like listed in the Pokedex.
Yeah.
So like that seems really weird as you know, sort of buttoned up and conservative as Nintendo is, and Nintendo does not allow this sort of stuff into their other games. And I know they don't have full control over the Pokemon company. They don't have full control over what's going on with those games. But it is kind of weird. This is their big cash cow, right?
Yeah.
Like, they know that every time they release a new Pokemon game, it's going to sell 20 million copies. To know that there's this much dark stuff, particularly the stuff with children, right? Like some of the stuff, like the Pokemon who people are beating to death because they think it's a harbinger of evil. like that's one thing, but like some of these that are like we lure children off and devour their souls.
Many of them.
It was like multiple. Yeah. Like that's pretty dark for the so-called Disney of video games.
Right.
Well, and presumably now though they're taking notes and learning from this, because now they're doing scary stuff in the Mario universe, like Luigi going to haunted mansions or Chris Pratt taking over Mario's body. So.
And so they changed the music. I mean, who has music on their phone anyway in any app at all ever? But they changed the music to a Lavender Town theme for Halloween. Which, have you all heard the creepypasta about Lavender Town?
Yes, theme? Lavender Town syndrome.
Yeah. So
I have no idea. So
initially, the creepypasta said that the first test version of Pokemon went out, and when the Lavender Town theme would play, children would just get like really, really upset and psychotic and kill themselves, and people would be killing themselves because it was so creepy, and it met like a certain like tone threshold or something that killed people. I can't remember.
It was like hitting their brains at a certain frequency or something.
Yeah. So they had to change it, which Lavender Town theme is creepy. And in the first game too, when you go to Lavender Town, it's essentially like a tomb for a bunch of Pokemon. Like that's what what's in Lavender Town, and it's pretty creepy.
The Pokemon Tower.
Yeah.
I think there was one thing that ended up being kind of like, there's a part where the music gets like really weird and diffused sounding, and I think people actually are like ran that through software to like look at the patterns of it, and there was actually like the patterns did make words, like, and I think they were using like, and I think the
did
letters.
It say Paul is dead?
No, I mean maybe, but I think how there's a Pokemon called the Unknown, and then there's a shape of letters. I think not only was it words, but I think they were in the shape of the Unknown, and that was before the Unknown actually came out. So it was kind of a weird Easter egg that they probably didn't think anybody would actually find until they had software. I think that's real. I could be wrong. Maybe this is...
I think that might have been a part of the creepypasta.
Well, I do wonder if that story is loosely based upon the animated series that... there was an episode that sent children into seizures because it had a flashing scene in it, and it sent several kids across Japan into seizures. And then I think when they brought it to the U.S., they edited that part out and never aired it in the U.S. But I wonder if that story is loosely based on that, because there was something that actually did harmfully affect children in Pokemon.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Huh. Well, that is a very interesting Halloween lesson on Pokemon.
Happy October, everybody.
I had no idea that Pokemon were that dark and that disturbing. I mean, Mr. Mime, yes, absolutely. Very dark, very disturbing.
Mr. Mime is dating Ash's mom, if you haven't watched
Ash's
that.
stepdad.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I knew that.
Are we sure he's his stepdad? I'm just saying maybe there was a relationship beforehand we don't know about.
That's why Ash never ages, maybe.
Do Pokemon age?
I think they do. I'm not 100%. I'm going to do some more research on if Pokemon can age and on more creepy Pokemon for next week's.
My honest guess is they're inconsistent about it. Or you probably see it happen, but there's probably plenty of Pokemon that don't. So.
Yeah.
Right, like Pikachu should have died by now, right? Like that.
I'm sure
that animated show.
Rats don't live that long.
Has been like 20 years or so, right? Like, rats, cats, whatever. They don't usually live over 20 years.
Another edgy reboot type like thing. Like if you see the memes where it's like an edgy reboot or like, oh, this is the tragic backstory of whatever show, was that Ash was in a coma. And so he's imagining all of this because he's in a coma and dying, and it's his last thing. And so that's why he never ages. And
I feel like we talked about that on an episode at one point. Yeah. Now, I got to say, we're having a huge Pokemon discussion without Alicia here. I feel like we're really like rubbing it in on her. Like,
oh, I didn't think about that.
I mean, Mario, do you want to talk about Sonic and like just twist the knife a little bit?
Honestly, I was going to talk about Sonic.
There we go. Great.
all right, well,
I will just say, though, I think maybe in service of them, we should have a special day where we just let Carly talk whatever about Silent Hill, and then Alicia can talk whatever about Pokemon, and let her beat up on Mario because I've beat up on Sonic so much. And at this point, Chris Pratt is voicing Mario, so it's really easy to do. So
Yeah, I mean, she really, in the movie universe, she won out in the still. Like, Sonic movie almost certainly will be better.
I don't know. I think Bob Hoskins' Mario is just underappreciated.
OJ, anything else?
Oscar worthy.
no, but I'm coming back next week with more creepy Pokemon, and then maybe if Alicia's here, then she'll get a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure she has like things she would like to say about the creepy Pokemon.
Yeah.
Mario, enlighten us with what you've been playing and specifically about Sonic.
So this time of year always gets really busy. I've made a pretty tight-knit group of friends through Twitch streaming, and so this is the time of year they all do their little events. They'll pick 10 games and we'll play them over the course of the month. And so the few that have really stood out recently were Blast Core, Buck Bumble, and Tetrasphere, which is Tetris Sphere, not Tetris Sphere, although for some people it might have been both.
That would have been a very appropriate Halloween game, Tetrasphere. Like, if you lose, it's a battle Tetris, but if you lose, you die.
The blocks are them twisted and maimed bodies of Mr. Mime after the murders.
Chandelier comes and burns your soul if you lose.
So those are the three that stuck out, at least as ones that I enjoyed for the most part. But then on my own, I've been going back and replaying the 3D Sonics. I think they're fun, and this is probably a hot take. I think the 3D Sonics are better than the 2D Sonics. Personally, I think every Sonic game is bad, but it's the fact that the 3D Sonics are a hot mess that makes them so much fun. So I've been doing Sonic Adventure 2, and then Sonic 06 is going to be up next.
Oh, wow. Sonic 06. We've been talking about Sonic 06 some, so that'd be interesting. So what do you think going back and replaying? I assume you've played Sonic Adventure 2 before.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? How does it hold up going back to it now? Because that has been my feeling about the Sonic Adventure games, is that they don't hold up as well as I enjoyed them originally back in 1999. Sure. It was for the first one.
I mean, I think it's going into it knowing that it's probably, not, I don't want to say competently made, but that it's got its own special stuff to it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like I said, that's what makes them so much fun to me. It's a game that I have a lot of nostalgia for, so I think there will always be a fondness, whereas the original Sonic Adventure, I had never played that growing up, so that one I didn't have as much of a connection with. But that's where, when people ask about the new one, like, oh, how do you feel about Sonic Frontiers? Do you think they can finally get it right? I hope not. I hope it's a broken mess because, that's what I enjoy most about them. So...
So you must love Sonic 06.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I again, maybe a hot take, but I think the 3D ones are more fun than the 2D ones.
And movies...
As much as it might break Alicia's heart.
Alicia, you can send hate mail to justin.young@siu.edu.
Yeah, I'll read it next week when Mario probably won't be here, and we'll just talk about how much you hate Mario.
Just the way you're talking about it kind of makes me think of how I look at movies sometimes. The Ed Wood's movies aren't good movies, but they are fun to watch. Sonic games are not necessarily the best games, but they're a hot mess, but they are a joy.
And that's one of the things I'm, not to get too much into what I'm interested in. There's one game scholar, and they talk about the hegemony of fun in games, in the sense of like good games are fun and fun games are good, but that's, we shouldn't use those as synonymous with one another, because there are a lot of games that are objectively not fun, and there are a lot of bad games that are a lot of fun. So I find that to be really interesting, and so trying to find a lot of joy in these games that are maybe not considered to be the best.
I have a guy, I think we've both listened to them before, Super Eye Patch Wolf. He loved a game called Deadly Premonition 2, and he's like, it is a horrible, horrible game in terms of mechanics, but he had a lot of fun with it.
Well, I mean, just the game, like you were talking earlier about Buck Bumble, right?
Yeah.
And that's a game I love just for the theme song to that game.
Oh, the greatest of all time.
Right. And it's like, I really do. I really do love that song. It's so insane that somebody made that song. But like, I think there's a lot of games like that, right? That you can kind of enjoy, but like you don't really even think they're that good. But like there's some joy that they bring you in playing them. And, I think when you talk about movies, right? Like this is the perfect time of year to think of those type of movies. All those 80s slasher films, I love. I love the Friday the 13th films. I love the Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street films. Almost none of those films are actually good, right? Like almost none of those films would I ever like argue to somebody, this is a good movie. The original Halloween, yes, that's a good movie. But outside of that, like all the sequels are absolutely trash. But I find a lot of joy in them, even though I know that they're kind of just trash, right? So that's interesting to think about that, with the games that you're playing and to interpret them from that perspective. Any of those games that you're playing that you think actually are good, going back and playing them now, that you go, this actually is a good game. This still holds up decently well.
It might be the nostalgia talking, but I enjoy Sonic Adventure 2. Like I said, I played that one a lot as a kid, and I still enjoy playing it.
That game does have an awesome intro, like Sonic breaking out of like the prison plane and
City Escape and Live and Learn. Those are two classic songs right there.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That San Francisco level going down the street, that's a pretty cool moment the first time you do it. So who's your favorite character in those Sonic Adventure games? Because there's a pretty big cast there of goofy characters. Which one do you like the best?
I mean, it's probably Shadow. Shadow is, maybe it's 12-year-old Mario thinking he was edgy, but...
Edgy the Hedgy?
Yeah.
the Hedge Lord.
I think Shadow, there's just so many classic lines from Sonic Adventure 2 that will make me smile that Shadow says, or thinking about the Shadow the Hedgehog game. And I will always smile at the fact that the president of the United States has a picture of Sonic and Shadow on his desk. Yeah, there's so much about them that are so good.
Yeah, that's pretty good to imagine the president. I would love to imagine that Joe Biden has a picture on his desk of Sonic and Shadow the Hedgehogs.
I was actually picturing like Obama, like just kind of like nostalgically picking up a picture of him like hanging out with Sonic and Shadow eating chili dogs and just thinking good times, good times.
Whereas Donald Trump had a picture of Chris Pratt as Mario.
Yeah. Well,
not even real Mario wouldn't show up. Like,
real Mario was like, "Mamma Mia, no."
It was Mario with absolutely no butt at all, voiced by Chris Pratt. There was a button that you would press, and it'd be like, "It's a me, Chris Mario."
Oh, okay,
Pratt.
like those.
And you got a Diet Coke brought to you.
Like those really early like Disney mascot outfits, like when Disney World or Disneyland first opened up, and how horrifying they were, or like the really early like Chuck E. Cheese mascots. It's like that quality of costume, and Chris Pratt is in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the original Chuck E. Cheese is a rat because they thought it was something else originally when they got the costume, when they saw it, and they didn't realize it was a rat until later. By then, it was a little too late. So that's how we ended up with the mascot for a restaurant being a rat, which seems like the craziest idea.
Oh, and Donald Trump is also hanging out with Mr. Mime, since we're punching down on Mr. Mime today.
Anything else, Mario, that you're playing?
The one that I've watched some friends play it a while back, but I only played it for the first time yesterday. It's called Luck Be a Landlord. It's a
Is this the like gambling sort of thing?
yeah.
Okay.
It looks like a slot machine, and it's a roguelike deck builder, I guess you could call it. And you have moved into this new apartment complex, and you can earn money through this slot machine in order to pay rent. And so you get a certain number of spins, and after a spin, you get to add a symbol, and symbols add money, and you can create these sorts of combinations where you earn more money for more spins and stuff like that, and you get more symbols on the slot machine to make it. And it's a lot of fun.
All right. I've been interested in that game, so like I've heard people talk about it, but I haven't had a chance to actually try it. It sounded just weird enough to like kind of actually be pretty interesting.
Yeah, and so you know, the first round you get like 5 spins, and your rent is like 50 coins or something like that, and then you know it's like, okay, now it's 100 coins, and you know you get another 5 spins, and it just gets more and more over time, which is, I guess, apt. But yeah, I've enjoyed it quite a bit. It's one that I will definitely continue playing. It's a good, I've got 10 minutes to play type of game.
Right. For me, I have been, speaking of 10 minutes to play a game, I've been playing Bone Raised Minions some more. I think I mentioned it last week. I've been really busy the last few weeks, and so this is the perfect sort of game I can kind of jump into, play a little short bit of, and then jump out of, and not really be too worried about my progress or anything. And then because I've been playing it, and because, as we'll talk about in the news, it's just gone 1.0, I went back and started playing some more Vampire Survivors. Those two games are just fantastic, and I keep thinking Vampire Survivors is one of the best games of the year. And like I didn't know that I would feel that way, but like going back and playing it some more, I'm just like, man, like has any game been as this impactful this year as Vampire Survivors? And like it's the sort of thing where I'm starting to think like, well, I can't think of 10 more games that have been more impactful. I can maybe think of a few, but like not 10 full games. So it really is one of the better games I've played this year. And both of those games have gotten updates. They both had new items added, new levels. In the case of Bone Raised Minions, they've added some new characters that you can play as. I think Vampire Survivors, they did raise the price on it. And Bone Raised Minions, I'm pretty sure they raised the price on that as well. But they're both still like $5 or less. So completely worth picking up. If you just want a quick diversion and everything, though I do like reading the negative reviews on Steam because the negative reviews are always, I can't even figure out how to fire in this game. How do I make it shoot? That's the whole point. So anyways, and so I played a little bit more of Scorn, which I talked about last week, which I'd only played about 30 minutes of or so at the time. This is the H.R. Geiger inspired game. Like I say inspired, but it's just flat a ripoff of H.R. Geiger. So just imagine the parts of Alien when they're going through the ship and it's been converted to the Alien, sort of parts they've taken over. And the walls are sort of, organic and everything's sort of covered in a slime, I guess. And it's just sort of everything looks both organic and inorganic at the same time. This game pulls off that aesthetic perfectly, more than any other game I've ever seen. And the graphics look pretty fantastic on it. It's a good looking game. I just don't really like it. It's more of a puzzle game than I was anticipating it to be, and it's fine as that. It's just I realize I just don't have the interest in it, and the game itself hasn't grabbed me other than the visuals. I've read some people who are really into it, but it seems like it's that sort of a game where it's sort of drawing those extreme reactions. Either people love it or people kind of just feel completely turned off by it. So I'm on that turned off side with it. So I don't think I'll probably play much more of it or anything. So, if you're in the mood for a sort of creepy puzzle game, it's one of the better looking ones I've seen in a long time. So I think it's probably right up your alley. All right, so let's move over. Well, let's do a quick recap. We talked about Luck Be a Landlord, Sonic Adventure 2, Onirum, Pokemon Go, Bone Rays Minions, and Vampire Survivors and Scorn. Anything I missed? All right. So let's move on to the news, and we are sorely missing Carly this week. So Carly was on last week, and she talked about how she was really excited for something new, some bit of news about Silent Hill. And then a couple of days after we recorded the podcast, they came out and announced, hey, we're going to do a big show about Silent Hill next week. And I don't think anybody anticipated how big of a show that was going to be.
Not at all.
Because this is one of the biggest drops ever for a franchise of just like, hey, we've been working on about 100 different things, and we're just going to announce them all right now. So this is kind of a weird situation. Konami, who just has not been making video games for years now. I mean, Konami, who basically got rid of their entire game development, staff. Like, I don't know they have hardly anyone there making games inside Konami anymore. Came out and they did a huge blowout, 4 new Silent Hill games that they're working on, plus a movie. So let's kind of talk about those. First is Return to Silent Hill. This is the film that they are working on. The original film's director, Christoph Gans, is that how you pronounce that? I'm not 100% sure on it.
Looks so.
But he is coming back to do it. The first film is, for a long time was often praised as the best video game movie at that point. Mm-hmm. The sequel is pretty much universally hated, but that first one people really like and really enjoy quite a bit. So he is coming back to do a new Silent Hill film. They did show off some concept art, but doesn't look like anything's actually been filmed or, gone any further than concept art at this point.
Well, I'm gay, so I'm obligated to be excited for another sexy Pyramid Head.
Well, they did show off Pyramid Head in the concept art. He does look like he's going to be the same for the most part. They're not changing him dramatically.
Thank you, Silent Hill. Thank you, Konami. Thank you, Christopher Gans. Christoph Gans.
Oh, look at this. He's being played by Chris Pratt.
It's me, Pyramid Head.
Let's go.
Yeah, that would be the excellent way they could actually ruin that film. So people seem very excited about this. I actually think that first Silent Hill film's pretty good. I don't think it's a great film, but it is a good video game movie in the way that you can kind of watch the first Mortal Kombat movie and be like, this is a good video game movie. It's kind of cheesy, but it very much fit the early 2000s horror sort of situation. So, them doing another one in that style, and so they did talk about sort of updating it for modern sensibilities. That sounds good. So good for them. The bigger news for video game fans was all the games. So the first one of those is they're doing a Silent Hill 2 remake. My understanding is among diehard Silent Hill fans, 2 is widely considered to be the best of the entire series. So they are starting with it and remaking it. Bloober Team is working on this. They also did The Medium and Layers of Fear, and it is coming to PlayStation 5 and Steam. The PlayStation 5 exclusivity is apparently going to be just for 1 year, so eventually this will likely come to Xbox if it's at all successful and not a complete disaster. So, look forward to that. Then they also announced Silent Hill Townfall. That is coming from Annapurna Interactive. Annapurna, who's known for making sort of more story-driven, sort of artsy type games and everything. So they're working on a Silent Hill game. Then Silent Hill F is coming from Neoboards Entertainment. They worked on Resident Evil Resistance. And this game is set in Japan, so not at all set in Silent Hill, at least from what they've shown so far. And it was a girl running through a town, and there were sort of like vines coming out of the buildings that were grabbing her. And, it looked pretty good, and it looked like maybe a different take on Silent Hill. Silent Hill is very kind of American Stephen King style horror. This looks like it's going to lean more into, Japanese horror, probably something more like The Grudge or something of that nature, a sort of supernatural ghost horror and that kind of thing.
And I think I saw it was 1960s Japan.
That may be right. And then the last game is Silent Hill Ascension, which very much looks like it's going to be a mobile game of some kind. They showed like a texting screen. And apparently this is a whole genre of games, of these like sort of texting interface games, which I'm not familiar with. I haven't played any of these, but that's very much what it looks like it's going to be. So 4 new Silent Hill games coming out in the next few years. I don't think they dated any of these specifically, but Silent Hill 2 Remake, Silent Hill Townfall, Silent Hill F, and Silent Hill Ascension, plus the movie. That is dated for next year sometime, which I don't know how much I believe that will actually make it because they haven't started filming it yet. So that's kind of interesting. But Return to Silent Hill is the film. So excited about these? Not excited? Any of these particularly stand out of interest to you?
So I'm excited, but really, honestly, I wish that it was Silent Hills, and I wish it was coming off of PT. Honestly, I don't know if they're going to match what PT was, and
Right.
So that upsets me a lot.
There have been rumors that there were multiple games in development, and I think a lot of people assumed one of those games would be in the style of Silent Hills.
Yeah.
Like maybe not not that game actually getting made, but something in that style. It just made logical sense, right? If you're following that up, you would make a game that followed that up. And certainly lots of other people have done that. I don't know. I don't know why they're not going down that route.
Silent Hill 2 is like, so there's like multiple games that like, I mostly had Nintendo stuff like growing. I think I did eventually get into PS, but then I like PlayStation, and then I went to Xbox. But one of the things I did miss that I wish I had played was the Silent Hill games. So I'm actually really excited about Silent Hill 2 Remake because that is something I've really wanted to play for a long time. I am also excited for Silent Hill F and Townfall, just from how they sound and like what I'm, kind of what I'm hoping for them. I'm not too interested necessarily in the Silent Hill mobile game. Maybe it'll be something awesome. And as far as the movie, I think I vaguely remember watching the first movie. I'm not saying whether it was the best or worst video game movie. Just I just prefer rather have another video game as opposed to a movie based on a video game. That's just tends to be my feelings about it. So I'm not excited about that, but for the new games, I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, I've never been much of a horror genre person, regardless of the medium. It is a franchise I've always been somewhat interested in checking out. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that it has done. I'll be interested in the Silent Hill 2 remake because I know they did a remaster of Silent Hill 2 for the PlayStation 3 that a lot of people were disappointed with.
Yeah, that HD collection.
Yeah. And so I assume this is being, built from the ground up by
Yes.
Bloober team. And so
They have already showed some images.
Oh, okay.
This is a complete rebuild from the ground up.
And so, hopefully it'll, live up to the expectations and the hopes of Silent Hill 2 fans.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see the Townfall, just given who's working on it and everything. I think that could be kind of interesting as a different take on the franchise. But yeah, I think Silent Hill 2 Remake is the big one for me right now. I'm obviously interested in what the other ones turn out to be. And I'm really interested in this kind of approach that Konami is taking, which is like none of these are being developed by Konami. Konami is certainly assumingly overseeing these games, but like they're not making any of these games themselves. They don't have anybody. They haven't staffed up a new development team to actually make any of these games. So this is more of, hey, we're taking our properties, and we have a lot of very beloved properties, Castlevania, Contra, lots of other things, and Metal Gear, obviously, and we're going to license these out essentially to other developers and let them make games for us. And that seems both interesting and terrifying because you start thinking of, all right, well, we're going to do the same thing with Metal Gear, and we're going to start licensing that out to other people to make Metal Gear games. And that seems like that could go off the rails very, very quickly. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out for them because, it's certainly a unique approach that, I don't feel like we've seen with this diversity, except for like a property like Star Wars or Marvel. That's probably the closest approximation that we've seen with this, where they take Star Wars and license it out to multiple different studios, all making games at the same time. And that seems to be their approach here. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I have to wonder if that's purposeful for Silent Hill. It's like, let's see how this goes, and maybe then we do it with like a Metal Gear. Maybe we do it with a Castlevania. Silent Hill is certainly beloved, but maybe not quite to the level of those other. And so maybe this is sort of a test run of see how something like that would go.
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly when you think that they have the movie there too, and they have been experimenting lately with that with Castlevania. They had the animated series on Netflix, and they're supposedly working on a new one now in addition to that. So they do seem to be doing some interesting things with the properties they own. So that's interesting, I think. Good for them. Good for Konami to actually be making games again. Sort of. Let's see. Vampire Survivors, as mentioned earlier, has gone 1.0. So the official game is out there now. It's been in early access up until this point. It's been a game constantly being updated with all sorts of new updates. They have officially gone 1.0. This is the quote-unquote final game, though I'm sure they will continue releasing new updates to it, new patches. But they may be looking at this as, it's time to move on and start working on our next game at this point. We finally got this to a place we're happy with. That's a really cool game. Again, I can't recommend it highly enough, particularly because it's very, very cheap. So I think it's worth your time to pick up. And pretty much most people I've talked to who have picked it up have been really happy with it. If you don't want to spend the $5 on Vampire Survivors, you can get The Sims 4 now completely free. We mentioned this several weeks back, and now it has officially gone free to play. So The Sims 4, if you've ever been Sims curious, you can now actually jump on in and play The Sims completely free. This does not include all the expansions because guess what? That's how they get you. So you still have to pay money for those, but you can get The Sims 4 for free. Anybody here play The Sims at all?
So I bought Sims 4 right when it came out. I mean, it's a solid game even without the expansions. If you like Sims games, that is. But so I mean, it's worth it to play if you've never played a Sims game before. It's a good introduction.
So speaking of The Sims, they also showed off the next generation of The Sims. This is, who knows what they'll end up calling it, The Sims 5, or they'll just call it The Sims. But right now they're calling it The Sims Project Renee, which kind of makes me laugh. Talk about an interesting developmental name there. So this looked pretty interesting, much more detailed graphics and everything, much more ability to move around the objects in the environment and reposition them exactly where you want. But this is still a very early in development project. So they're saying, hey, don't look for this anytime soon. So I'm thinking this is at the earliest a 2024 game. I mean, I wouldn't expect it next year at all. And that seems to be the reason to move The Sims 4 free to play, so that, they build up some interest, they bring in some more players, and then, in another year and a half, they can actually release The Sims 5 or Project Renee or whatever they end up calling it. But given that they've gone Sims 4 free to play, it seems like this is going to be a service game. That this is going to be much more Sims. Project Renee is going to be completely free. You download it, and then they're going to kill you with microtransactions on this game. So, that seems to be the model they're heading for with that series, which probably makes sense.
So the Sims Project Renee sounds to me like AI. Like they created a sentient AI for the Sims. I don't know.
Yeah, that kind of does.
Yeah.
I mean, Renee sounds like Siri or, any of those sorts of AIs. So maybe so. Let's see. This is kind of a follow-up to a story we did about Overwatch 2. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 will be like Overwatch 2 in that it also requires you to link a phone number to play it online. So this was a big problem with Overwatch 2 because it wasn't allowing some of the sort of prepaid phone services to work with it. So even services like Cricket, for example, which is pretty popular, particularly among college students. I know a lot of college students who use Cricket. It wasn't allowing those numbers as the number you were linking. So they were requiring at that time for it to be a service that you paid on a monthly subscription basis, like AT&T, Verizon, those sorts of services. And so they have announced that they're going to do the same thing with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. They have backed off with Overwatch 2 a little bit and allowed more of those, but like this is an interesting development for Activision. Because they seem to be doubling down on this. This seems to be their way to prevent, I suppose, like hackers and people from getting on there and like ruining the experience for other players. But like the sort of long-term outcome of this, right, is that as we talked about previously with Overwatch 2, this stands in the way of a lot of people being able to play these games.
From Activision to Class Division.
Yeah, and trolls and hackers are very serious problems, but I don't think they're a big enough problem to cut off so many people, especially poor people who can't necessarily afford AT&T or Verizon, and so they're getting the numbers that aren't linked to those, and then they can't play. So I don't think it's a big enough problem to cause that.
Yeah, this is gross.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's particularly interesting because they're doing this with some service games, right? So Overwatch 2 is a service game, it's a free-to-play game. Mm-hmm. You pay for the some of the specific unlocks and everything, I suppose. But it's a free-to-play game, and you're making it less likely people will play this. They'll go play Fortnite instead because they just can't get into this game. Right. And Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is selling, as a new game for $60, $70, whatever it sells for. But, some of their other things like Warzone, which is their, Battle Royale game, you can imagine them implementing this with that. And again, you're driving people away. So you're just driving people to play these other free-to-play service games, which doesn't seem like the best business decision even.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm not really sure I understand how that's going to work out for them.
I don't think Activision itself is the best business decision at this point.
Well, look, man, they're just hoping they can ride this out long enough until Microsoft closes the deal, and then they don't have to worry anymore. Let's see. Nvidia, there's a typo there. Nvidia has unlaunched the RTX 4080 12 gigabyte card. So this was always a bizarre story. Nvidia has released their new lineup of cards. There has traditionally been a 4080, 4070, 4060, and it's kind of like their good, better, best lineup of cards. So they had this with the 3000 line, the 2000, the 1000 line of cards. So for this line, they did not put out a 4070. There's a 4080 and a 4060 and a 4090, which is their crazy expensive line. And so they released a second 4080. There are two 4080 cards. One, I think, that has 16 gigabytes, and then this one that has 12 gigabytes. And so people thought it was just less RAM on the card, but come to find out it's not just less RAM. The card itself is less powerful beyond just the RAM. So really this is a 4070 card, but they were releasing it under the 4080 brand name, and players aren't happy about it. So they have unreleased it and pulled it back and said, okay, we messed up. We didn't name this card correctly. And players are like, yeah, we could have told you that.
Yeah.
Presumably they may release this card again in the future and give it the 4070 label. But like this seemed like a very much unforced error on their part. One of the biggest stories this week has been about Bayonetta 3. So, OJ, I was actually happy you could be back this week and be on the show because I thought of you particularly with this story. This has been a mess. Okay, so the original voice actress for Bayonetta is Helena Taylor. She put out a video last week asking fans to boycott Bayonetta 3. Because she was insulted by the offer that she was given to reprise her role as the voice actress for Bayonetta in Bayonetta 3. She claims in that video that she was offered $4,000 to reprise her role. Now, what individuals are paid for doing voice acting for video games is one of those sort of kept secrets. You know, it's not something that most people can speak to, other than that a lot of big name actors do it once and never come back. Mm-hmm. And the implication has been that the money's just not very good. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, those people who come in, they do one video game, they never come back and do another because they realize, oh, that really wasn't even worth my time. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll go do a cartoon on Cartoon Network and make more money than doing this for a video game. But still, $4,000 seemed to be awfully low for somebody who's in the third game and playing the main character of that game.
Right.
You know, and you start to think, like, how much work is that? Like, that's got to be quite a bit of work to do all the voice work for that entire game and everything. And, you know, she's a contract employee. She's not getting health insurance through the company for doing this. So, like, that seems really low. So, Hideki Kamiya?
I think it'd be Kamiya, I think.
Okay. Who is one of the people working on the game, came out for Platinum Games, came out and denied the allegations. Then he deleted his Twitter account or made it go private, which was, you know, quite a choice. So that
I feel reassured.
Right. That felt weird when that happened, and you kind of thought, okay, that's not really the defense that you think it is.
I just pictured him then running away from his computer, like throwing it out a window and then running away.
Like he hits send on the tweet and then immediately pushes it out the window and takes off running.
Now we don't know where he's living.
He's off the grid.
Farm.
But since then, a report has come out that she was actually offered $3,000 to $4,000 per session, not for the entire game, but per session, and that was for a total of 5 sessions of recording, which, you know, 5 times, we'll take the high end, 4,000. That's $20,000. So quite a big difference between $4,000 and $20,000 there. And that this was, quote, a significant, unquote, pay raise over the past games, what she's been paid for those. Taylor, also according to this report, Taylor supposedly asked for 6 figures plus residuals. And I would have thought residuals were part of it with video games, but apparently not, or at least not in a lot of cases. But apparently, you know, $20,000 versus 6 figures, right? Mm-hmm. So even if she was asking on the low end, that's an $80,000 difference, you know, 5 times what they were offering her. You know, in the interest of fairness, she has come out and denied this account, that this account is accurate. So this has been a huge blow up. In that original video, she does slightly call out Jennifer Hell, who is the voice actress that got hired to replace her. Mm-hmm. Jennifer Hell is like the #1 woman voice artist in video games. She's like super famous, is like one of the top requested voice artists 4 games, did the female Shepard in the Mass Effect games. So very, very prominent figure. And that created some backlash against Taylor in this case, because a lot of fans were like, whoa, 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 whoa. You can be mad at Platinum, but like, why are you bringing her into this mess? Like, she's not responsible. So that's it. That's the mess. I kind of just wondered what you all thought of it.
So $4,000 is very low, but also $20,000 seems very low for me for like voicing the main character of a video game, especially since Bayonetta is very, very much about the character of Bayonetta. So you're putting that entire voice in. So like, I would agree with 6 figures, and I would have assumed, like you said, residuals would be coming anyway. So it's offensive to me that, you know, she's not getting residuals for the other games, and that they offered $20,000. And I know that like you said, voice actors don't get paid much, but like, I don't understand people being angry at her saying, oh, well, she was going to make $20,000 to voice this iconic character, right? So Bayonetta has 3 iconic parts. Her body and her boobies are showing most of the time. Her hair, which turns into boots and fists, and her voice. And her voice is very much a part of her. And like $20,000 is not enough.
Right.
And she should be making it because her voice is being used, and like her voice is selling that game.
Yeah, one point that was made about this was, you know, one of the things that people sometimes don't understand is that a voice actor, you know, or any type of actor has an agent, and that agent is taking a cut of that. And then again, like, unless they're a union actor, you know, who works enough to get insurance through the Screen Actors Guild, and I don't know how all that works, but I do know you have to work so much in a year to qualify. But like, you know, then she's paying for insurance. Like, it's not like what we would think of as a normal job where you know, your employer pays for your insurance or pays part of it or something. So, you know, you start thinking like she's paying out of pocket for insurance, for health, you know, dental and eye insurance, and, you know, all these other things. You know, yeah, you know, that's contract work. It is what it is. But, you know, $20,000 to me might, you know, in addition to my salary, might seem like a lot of money. But when that's your only thing that you're getting, it's maybe not as much.
Right. And if she's contract, she's paying her own taxes too from that. So it's much less than $20,000 is what she's getting, and it's ridiculous that voice actors are not getting paid more for larger characters like this, because it's not like Bayonetta has a very tiny budget that they have to stay within. Bayonetta and Nintendo have a pretty large budget. They can get it. They can pay her 6 figures plus residuals for being the main character of this game. With that being said, I'm still going to buy it and play it, but I don't think people should be angry at her for calling them out either.
Right.
And if she's denying asking for 6 figures, I would be like, you deserve 6 figures. You shouldn't have to deny that. You should now ask for 6 figures now that all of this is coming up and people are kind of banding behind you. But
yeah, I agree. And something I want to add is going to the point about Hale. I actually am. I feel like maybe I shouldn't even say this because I don't feel like I know enough about the voice acting game in this area. But my feeling about that is that if Hale is somebody who has like, not saying that Hale's always gotten paid enough, but if they've had it like, if she's had it relatively like easier than a lot of other voice actresses in terms of being very sought after and stuff, and you know she's just okay, well, I'll just step in and do it. I can see the frustration with that. Now, if it was the case, if the case was it was a new voice actress who needed the job, and then Helena Taylor was calling them out, no, I wouldn't agree with that because that's somebody that's newer who's not getting paid as well that needs that job. But if it's somebody who's this sought after, who's just stepping it in, I guess my way of putting it would be like, think of like if an actor in a movie who's like played a character several times and still wasn't getting paid enough, stepped out, and then Robert Downey Jr. went ahead and stepped in versus a completely new actor who needed that job stepped in. I would be angry at Robert Downey Jr., but I wouldn't be upset with, like, say, the new actor. Well, if that makes sense.
She probably, I would say, didn't know
That's
either.
fair.
Right. Yeah. I think, in fairness to Jennifer Hell, she probably didn't know what the circumstances were. Like
Okay.
she probably knew that Helena Taylor was not doing it. She was probably aware Helena Taylor had done it previously, but she might not have been aware of this whole situation. Because to my understanding, this was all hush hush until this last week when it came out. So from Jennifer Hell's perspective, it might have just been, hey, we're recasting Bayonetta, or the other actress passed on the role, and would you be interested?
Oh, okay.
And in that case, I don't think we can hold it against her in that situation. She's a working actress. It's a job's a job.
Okay, that's fair.
But yeah, I mean, I think I get what you're saying. Like, definitely if she knew, hey, we're having a contract dispute and we refuse to pay this other actress well. And I think that raises an interesting question, right? Because did they pay Jennifer Hell this little as well? Because she's a pretty well-known voice actress. I would imagine she's commanding top dollar.
Yeah.
Whereas Helena Taylor, this is her big role. Like, she doesn't have other big roles looking at her IMDb page. So I got to imagine that Jennifer Hell commands a higher price tag than Helena Taylor does.
Okay, that I was kind of looking at through the lens that Hale did know. That's a good point, though. Well, I'll step back on that then.
I think for me, the big thing is the fact that this is the third game in the series, right? Like,
Right.
If this was the very first one, yeah, maybe the offer might be a little bit lower. But like, if you've got a franchise that's been successful enough to, warrant a third game, and a very hyped up third game, people were excited when it got announced, and probably more games beyond that. I mean, her inclusion in Smash and all that sort of stuff. This is an offer that seems certainly insufficient for what you've got on your hands in terms of what she's done for your franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the other things that I had read were people saying, well, why doesn't she just get more jobs and, take 2 or 3 jobs in the same week? And, and I would just say that one of the things that people maybe don't understand about voice acting is getting in a booth for several hours a day and just using your voice over and over again. And in that situation, your voice is your tool. And you can wear that tool out very, very quickly. And, and once you wear it out, you can't work anymore. It's not the same as a model who can go and, from one photo shoot to the next photo shoot and maybe is exhausted and physically tired, which I understand, that is work. I don't want to demean it, but their beauty doesn't get worn out by 3 p.m. Whereas if you're using your voice, you can wear that out really quick. And, singers know this is the reason singers have to kind of pace their tour and everything. They can't necessarily be performing every single night, or they'll wear out their vocal cords. So that's again, obviously Jennifer Hell works an awful lot. But even someone like her has to pace themselves.
And this to me, it doesn't make me think of just this larger history of a vocal artist getting screwed over in industries not just video games but in animation. This is just bringing stuff to mind. I think the vocal artist for I'm not that familiar with the movie. It's not something that was a big part of my childhood, but Space Jam, I think the voice actors were given pretty little credit for that movie. And I'm also thinking about how just something in The Simpsons, and I don't know who's necessarily was pulling the strings there, who's at fault necessarily, but Maggie Roswell, she had to fly to get to that booth. She had to take flights, and she said, I need a pay raise. And when she requested that, rather than give her that, they killed off one of the main characters that she voiced in The Simpsons. That's why Maude Flanders died, was so that they didn't have to pay a voice actress more. And it's just a really, and then I even think about the fact that it can be harder for voice actors and actresses and non-binary performers to get jobs also, just because now celebrity vocal artists are a big thing. Even when celebrity vocal artists, it's a different skill, right? It's not the same thing as like acting like on screen. It's a different skill set. But they'll still get paid more for doing the same work.
Hey, I'm Mario. It's me, Mario. You know, the plumber, the superhero, Mario. Well, why are you all looking at me? This is how I talk.
Speaking of that, I also just...
But he worked really hard on that voice.
It's unlike anything we've ever heard before.
that isn't entirely untrue. But I also... That just brings up, like, I'll just throw out here, like, Tara Strong, who voices a lot of cartoon characters. Like, she's voiced Harley Quinn in a lot of things in video games and animation. She's voiced Twilight Sparkle and My Little Pony, Raven and Teen Titan stuff. She actually came out recently and, like, just said, like, hey, Charles Martinet, you should have got that job. So I just want to say good on her for standing behind fellow vocal artists.
Yeah, and I just looked. Bayonetta is a $450 million franchise. And that's not including merchandise.
Well, that is from her quote. She said that it was a $450 million franchise. Some people have come out and disputed that figure since then. And said,
I was thinking that was an actual quote from this. But Jennifer Hale also made a tweet kind of in support of her. She said she's under NDA, but she said, as a longtime member of the voice acting community, I support every actor's right to be paid well and have advocated consistently for this for years. Anyone who knows me or has followed my career will know that I have a great respect for my peers and that I'm an advocate for all members of the community. I'm under an NDA and not at liberty to speak regarding the situation. My reputation speaks for itself. But I ask that everyone keep in mind that this game has been created by an entire team of hardworking, dedicated people, and I hope everyone will keep an open mind about what they've created. Finally, I hope everyone involved may resolve their differences in an amicable and respectful way. So I think that was a really great way for Jennifer Hale to respond to this, too.
Yeah, it seems like a very classy tweet from her.
Okay, I'll step back on my frustration with her then.
But yeah, I mean, you know, obviously she's in a horrible position in this, you know, and I don't think she wishes any ill on Taylor in this situation. And I don't even know that Taylor wishes ill on Jennifer Hale. I don't know that they have any sort of animosity towards one another. I think probably this is her speaking out of frustration, and, you know, she just brought Hell's name into it. But yeah, huge mess for this game that, you know, like there were, I think Mario, you said there were high expectations, you know, there was a lot of excitement. And so it's kind of disappointing.
Hail on the chance that you are listening to this podcast. I'm sorry. I should have given you more of the benefit of the doubt there. So my apologies.
That's okay. We'll let her know.
And if you don't accept that apology, you can email Justin.
Yeah,
don't email me, email Justin.
Yeah, please email me, and I will read it next week on air, and we'll make Ryan, like, you know,
while I'm beating up Ryan.
Yeah, commit harikari live on air. Let's see. Second Life has more concurrent users currently than does Meta's Horizon Worlds. So this is Facebook's attempt. Meta. This is their attempt to create the metaverse, and Second Life, the platform that's been around for, 25 years at least at this point?
Very long time, yeah.
Still has more users.
Nobody wanted to run to the Mark Zuckerberg version.
I mean, it's just kind of crazy because they have invested over $1 billion into metaverse research. So not just this program, but just everything that they're doing. And it just strikes me as hilarious because this thing that most people have forgotten ever existed, there are still more people using it today than are using this new platform.
So in defense of Second Life, which I never thought I'd say, I met one of my husbands on Second Life. I don't often admit that, but so we met in Second Life. I ran a strip club and he was a hooker. And we met. And but a lot of people have.
Okay, that's just funny and not tragic, so I don't feel bad laughing at it.
Well, but a lot of people have invested a lot of money in Second Life and in families and relationships in Second Life. And there are people who have built up entire role-playing families in Second Life that I think stick around for each other. So I think there's a pretty big base of people in Second Life, but still you would think that more people would be joining Horizon Worlds.
Yeah, and I think it's just one of those things, like, we just don't talk about it anymore, right? Like, and in fact, I think if you're not our age, you may not even know what Second Life is. Like, I feel like if I asked a lot of my undergraduate students, they would just not have ever heard of Second Life. And, you know, it almost occupies one of those places, I feel like, in games. It's not really a video game. It's more of a kind of an experience. But, like, it kind of occupies that same space as something like Roblox, right? Like, where we don't talk a whole lot about Roblox, but Roblox is bigger than just about any game that we do talk about.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of exists on that periphery of the games culture. And, you know, Second Life the same way. Like, it is just quietly plodded along and been very successful, and obviously more successful than what the best of Facebook can build today.
Yeah.
It's just like some rich dad being like, hey, Second Life is cool, right? You want my version of Second Life? Like, nah.
You have Second Life at home. We don't need to.
I didn't even know this had a name. Horizon Worlds, I could have taken 100 guesses and never had even come up with what it was called. So, I mean, not that necessarily means anything specific, but
I don't think there's some very exciting worlds in that Horizon from what I've heard.
It's been interesting. I think we had this on the show notes a couple weeks ago, but we ran out of time to get to it. But one of the things that's been happening is Facebook has been trying to force employees to, like, hold meetings in this. Because that's part of their pitch, right? When they rolled this out originally, part of their pitch was, well, you can have meetings in, you know, the metaverse, in this virtual world, and everybody will have a VR headset, you know, assumingly a Meta Quest headset, and you can have these meetings. And apparently their employees are just, like, refusing to use it. And so Facebook has been sending out internal memos like, you really need to be using this for meetings. And
that's so pathetic.
It just makes me think so much of, like, Microsoft Teams, like when you have, like, official, like, outlets that are like, okay, we're going to do this through Microsoft Teams, and everybody's like, can we just use Zoom? And they're like, no, Microsoft Teams. Use Microsoft Teams.
You have to validate us. You have to validate us.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so it's just one of those situations where, you know, you look at Facebook and you just think you are spending so much time and resources over here on this side project that is just spinning its wheels and going nowhere. And meanwhile, Facebook and Instagram are, like, crumbling before our eyes. And, you know, it's not something 5 years ago you could have quite imagined would have played out this way for them. Yeah. So, one last thing here before we move on, because we're kind of running a little late on time. Netflix has announced that they are working on considering a cloud gaming service. That this is, you know, they cite it specifically Stadia's issues, and that they have learned from them, which, you know, good for them at least acknowledging like that they're keenly aware of the problems that Stadia had. I think it was just last week we were talking about Stadia shutting down, wasn't it? And so Netflix says, hey, we think we might try this, and that they're not viewing this as a separate platform, but as a supplement to Netflix. So I think they're really viewing this as a way to continue to differentiate themselves from other streaming services. So this sounds like, much like with their mobile games currently, that's just a free value add if you already subscribe to Netflix. It sounds like they're viewing this streaming service as a value add, where you would basically get some games you could stream each month, and you would not pay anything in addition to your normal Netflix subscription. Or maybe this would be for, like, the top tier, you know, if you're getting the new $8 a month with ads plan, you wouldn't get this, but if you're paying for one of the more premium plans, you would.
Well, I think at least they learned from Blockbuster, who they essentially put out of business, and they're expanding a little bit. So
And now they're making a TV show based off of.
yeah,
Is that real? Was that
yes,
okay.
and I'm very excited about it.
It's very real.
Okay, I couldn't tell when I saw that. I was like, is this real or is this like a really mean joke?
I mean, it could have very easily been like a Saturday Night Live skit. Like, I could completely see Saturday Night Live doing that as a skit and being like, yeah, we're Netflix. We're going to start making shows of all the companies we've put out of business. And, like, just mocking them.
I missed this. Netflix is making a show about Blockbuster?
Yeah,
Yes.
Like a documentary? Or
no,
like
it's like a sitcom type thing.
Alrighty.
No, there was already a documentary that
Yeah.
Kevin Smith did, right?
Yeah.
Or he does the host of it. He
Yeah.
didn't make it, but he does the hosting of it.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, I worked at Blockbuster. It was my it wasn't my first job, but it was I ended up being a store manager at the end before I left. So I'm very excited to. I was very entrenched in Blockbuster culture, and I'm very excited to see the show.
I know stories about this job. So
So Mario, this is a sitcom set in the last Blockbuster, which is in what, Bend, Oregon?
Is it
I
set
do
in the
know
last
it's in
Blockbuster?
Oregon somewhere.
What?
I do know it's in Oregon somewhere.
Yeah, it's in Oregon. I was thinking it was Bend,
I
Oregon.
think it's Ben. That sounds right.
And so this is set in the last one. I don't know if it's technically set in Bend, Oregon. Maybe this is just going to be a nondescript city and everything. But it is about the team running the last Blockbuster. And it looks very much like it's the team that made the NBC series Superstore that was like set at a fictional Walmart. So it looks like that show to me in a lot of ways. It kind of has the same vibe as that show to me. But it looks interesting. It looks like kind of fun and everything. And
Cool.
that show Superstore was pretty good, actually. I mean, for a goofy, dumb sitcom, it was actually pretty entertaining. Had some decent writing on it and everything.
I am interested in this. I do want to launch it, although I will say there's a part of me that just like, that feels kind of mean.
It feels like if Nintendo was like, we're making a game about Atari. This is a game about the last days of Atari, which would be pretty fantastic. So,
Just so happy we could tell the story and help them out one last time.
Nintendo could make a movie about the making of E.T.
Oh.
yeah, well, there is a documentary out there about that if you want to see it. So,
Oh, I've seen it.
all right, we're running late on time, so let's get to our big question. Our big question is this week, given, we talked about Silent Hill and they're like kind of blitz of games. What franchise do you think deserves a blitz of new games like Silent Hill? So we're kind of asking, what series would you love to see them come out tomorrow and announce, hey, we've got 4 new games coming out and a movie even coming out in this franchise in the very near future? Probably more of a long dormant franchise, but it doesn't have to be. Let's see, OJ, why don't we start with you?
So I was thinking about this, and I think Castlevania, but I would really definitely want it to be more of the older, like Metroidvania Castlevanias. I mean, they could do a new one with a like reboot type thing, but if one of them was a Metroidvania at least, and if they remastered or remade Harmony of Dissonance, because as I've talked about multiple times on here, I'm really mad that I can't get the DLC on the PlayStation Plus.
I feel like this is your white well.
It really is. It really is. Like, I've contacted them and said, hey, you need to do this. That's why I know that they
okay, this is funny and tragic again.
yeah. So you have to be able to emulate it on your system and not on the cloud in order for the DLC to be done. That's what they're saying. And because they can't do the PS3 because you can't download it onto your system is why they can't do the DLC. But they really, like, if they put it on Steam or if they put it on anywhere, I think it's just a fantastic game that I really, really would like to play again fully with people playing online, because there's still people playing the original one online. And so I would like to just get back into playing that. And so I would want that to be like the remake, and then another Metroidvania coming out, and then they could do another of the reboot one, and then a movie with Chris Pratt playing Alucard.
Have at you.
It's a meme. I mean Alucard. I mean Garfield. No, Alucard was right.
Who am I this week? All right. Mario.
I was going to jump ahead. Castlevania was going to be my answer, actually, as well. For me, it would be Aria of Sorrow as the remake. That's, of the GBA games, that one is definitely at the top for me. But I think it's a franchise where you could do a lot of different things. You could make a more survival horror type of thing, over the shoulder, third person, where you're exploring this castle. So yeah, Konami, I guess, people do want games from me.
Yeah.
And like the Castlevania 64, not Castlevania 64, the follow-up to Castlevania 64 did just have a character who had a gun. So like that sort of third-person survival horror, like they could just do that and have a character, in the 1800s with a pistol going through the mansion and everything, and that would be, going through the castle. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and with all of like the different gothic horror monsters you run into, I think it would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that's a way to vary that franchise up a little bit. Of course, we all love the Metroidvania games, but doing something a little bit different, and if you're doing this Blitz, makes a whole lot of sense. All right, Ryan.
First off, before I go on, I just want to say, I would, if Chris Pratt was in a Castlevania project, I would like to hear Dracula say, "What is Chris Pratt but a miserable pile of secrets?" But on that note, I actually have a different answer.
Come on. We were all going to say Castlevania. We agreed to this before the show.
I'm going to ask, do any of you think you can guess what mine would be?
Is it going to involve Waluigi?
No. It's a franchise that has existed. Waluigi, unfortunately, has not had his own franchise. That's one that needs to still exist.
I don't know.
Mega Man Legends.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, one voice actor needs to be recast because there's one that just turned out to be a garbage, awful human being. But other than that difference that would need to be made, I would be fine with the rest of the voice cast or a new voice cast. And I want a 3. I would be happy with spin-off games. I would be happy with remakes of the first 2 games, although I'd also be happy just to replay them. Mega Man Legends. It'd probably be good to do stuff for other Mega Man fans too, but I want more Mega Man Legends games, and that would make me so happy.
I think that's a very possible option, right? Like I could very much see Capcom come out tomorrow and announce, hey, we're doing a new Mega Man game, we're doing a new Mega Man X game, and a new Mega Man Legends game. And I can imagine fans heads exploding the possibility.
And Chris Pratt, you stay away from it.
No, he's definitely the voice of bass from now on. Yeah, so I thought about this. I've had a couple of options. One was Karnov, which only because I just discovered that there was a Karnov 2 that they were making for the NES, and that game got completely scrapped. And of course, Karnov turns up later in some fighting games as the end boss. He's in Bad Dude, so you could just do the whole Karnov cinematic universe, a new Karnov game, a new Bad Dudes game, a new... is it Fighter's History that he's in? You could do a new one of those. And that would be only of interest to old people like me who would have any idea who Karnov is. But it'd be very funny if they did that. And the other one I thought that could be kind of interesting would be to do a new Star Fox series of games. And so there were rumors year, 2 years ago that they were going to do a Star Fox racing game, sort of in the style of kind of like the F-Zero franchise, but they thought Star Fox was more marketable and had the more known characters. And so the rumor was that Nintendo was working on this. They were going to do this Star Fox racing game. So if you did that, you could do an entirely new Star Fox game. Go back and remake Star Fox 64. That's a pretty fantastic game already. Just do, upgraded graphics and that sort of thing. And then you could do one of the really bizarre, weird, like side projects they've tried to do with Star Fox, a new Star Fox Adventures. You could do a new one of those.
Please give me another Star Fox adventure.
And I just feel like it's Nintendo's franchise that they haven't even abandoned. They just malign that franchise every opportunity they get. They just do wrong things with it. And you're like, just give me another classic Star Fox in the style of Star Fox 64. Like you can even add in the sort of Star Fox adventure like elements to it to kind of expand the game and make it of more interest to a wider audience. But like really just do that game. That's what lots of fans want, and I think that would be a whole lot of fun. So
I'm surprised they didn't make a Star Fox racing game yet. Now that you bring it up, that just feels like such a.
Yeah, well, I mean, they haven't done an F-Zero game since the GameCube, and that seems kind of weird to imagine. Nintendo does lots of weird things of just like abandoning franchises for decades and then going, "Oh right, we own this."
I thought that was a Sega thing.
Like you sort of think of like that the opening of Gremlins, when they go into the little shop and everything, and there's all these curiosities on the shelves and everything. Yeah. Like that is how I think Nintendo headquarters runs. And they just walk in there and there's like all these like games covered in cobwebs and everything. And there's no light in there. There's like one light bulb over in the corner that's like half lit and it's covered in dust. And Nintendo walks through there and they go, "What is this?" And they go, "Star Tropics?" And somebody's like, no, don't do anything with that. And so that's just my imagination for how Nintendo runs, because it really seems accurate. And occasionally, all of a sudden, Nintendo's like, "Hey, remember this game?" And you're like, "What are you doing, Nintendo?"
Or maybe they just have like one of those like one of those blocks like in Mario Kart where you, like it changes every time what you get. Like it's just a bunch of things scrolling through, and then it's like, and then they hit it, and then F-Zero comes. We haven't gotten that one in a long time. Like.
Yeah, it may be, and they keep getting too many like blue tortoise shells, and that hit them and knock them out for a while, and that's when they're not making anything.
I mean, they are faster than Sonic. Took that shot. Okay. I'm proud.
But yeah, so seeing Nintendo do something like that would be pretty interesting. And I like this idea, like this. We're kind of bringing Silent Hill back, and we're bringing it back in the biggest fashion imaginable. It's just kind of cool, kind of fun and exciting. Even if you're not a Silent Hill fan, I think you have to be kind of excited for it. So it would be neat to see, Castlevania, Mega Man. I think those are like really good options because there's lots of different ways to take those franchises, and kind of spread that wealth around for fans. All right. Well, that does it for us this week. I want to thank everyone on the show again. So we have Ryan, OJ, and a special thanks to Mario for sitting in for Alicia this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I feel like we've given you a lot less abuse than we normally give Alicia, mostly in the form of making fun of Sonic or Pokemon. And this week we just talked about how creepy Pokemon are. So
It's kind of cool how scary those things can be. Like, use that, Nintendo. Come on.
Yeah, I feel like we should be seeing a lot more Pokemon Halloween costumes. You normally only see Pikachu, but I feel like we should be seeing all these other ones. But thank you for everyone for listening. You can always check out more at salukigames.com. You can, as we noted, if you have questions, comments, or anything you want to send to us, you can send it to justin.young@siu.edu. So any complaints about the nightmares that OJ has given you now about playing Pokemon, or how you feel about his hilarious tragic stories, please feel free to send those along and everything, and we will we'll read some of them if they're acceptable on there. Otherwise, we will be back next week with another episode. Thanks for tuning in.